and welcome back to Ron Hasn't Seen. This week I'm continuing our discussion of movies from the Great Movie Ride with 1932's Tarzan the Ape Man, directed by W.S. Van Dyke and written by Cyril Hume. Now this movie had a whole scene in the Great Movie Ride, a whole room to itself. Obviously there's other Tarzan movies, but they specifically talk about the Johnny Weissmuller and Maureen O'Sullivan versions. When this film came out in 1932, Tarzan had been about a 20-year-old story. It was originally published by Edgar Rice Burroughs in 1912. As I said, it starred Johnny Weissmuller as Tarzan and Maureen O'Sullivan as Jane. Weissmuller went on to do a full dozen Tarzan films, and then went on to do 16 Jungle Jim films and a TV show for the same character. So he kind of stayed typecast to this role. O'Sullivan did 6 films totals as Jane. And I'm not going to mince words on this one. This film, I'm not going to recommend because I feel it's really problematic, incredibly racist, and really doesn't need to be on anyone's watch list. There are natives being whipped, as well as a bunch of white little people in blackface playing a pygmy-like tribe. You know, the film actually starts off in the early parts showing some stock footage from documentaries about Africa from the time, and with stock footage of actual tribes, and it gave me some hope beginning the film, but those were really quickly smashed when I saw the treatment of the black actors in the show. It was hard to watch at times. It's a Tarzan film, so the plot has Jane and her explorer father searching for the legendary elephant graveyard in this version. They're looking for an easier source of ivory. The film felt like a serial. There's a bunch of mini adventures. They have climbing mountains, crossing rivers, escaping animals and native tribes, escaping Tarzan, eventually trying to rescue Jane from Tarzan, and eventually being rescued by Tarzan himself. There's an overwhelming sense of dread at times with the Tarzan and Jane scenes that just have this whole rape vibe. It could happen at any moment here. And it's really, really disturbing and adds to the problematic nature that I mentioned. Yeah, there's just little, if any, merit left to this film after 90 years. Especially with much less problematic and tighter told versions. Like Disney's animated feature out there. Like, go see one of those instead of this. I'm not going to discuss too deeply just because I don't recommend going to see it, and I don't think we should be giving attention to something that's this deeply problematic and not that significant of a film. Yeah, it was extremely popular at the time, made millions of dollars on a $600,000 budget, and it did feature, the acting's not horrible, but even Burroughs himself didn't like the version because Tarzan doesn't talk. He just kind of continues the Tarzan type stuff throughout the whole film without actually learning English, which he does supposedly. I've never read the books, but he apparently does in the Tarzan books and in most versions of the film. It even let him to do his own versions of it. I mean, there's some interesting things about the film. I just do want to say I really grew up not very far from Johnny Weissmuller's home in Fort Lauderdale, and I would have to pass by it almost every day, going to and from my house. And my stepdad would always point out the overgrown dock that bordered the canal, and I always thought it was very fitting for him, because everybody knows him as Tarzan, and everybody knows he was an Olympic swimmer. And when he was asked to play Tarzan, he already was under contract to model for BVD underwear, and they didn't want to let him out to be a movie star. So MGM made a deal where they would lend out some of their actresses, like Greta Garbo, to BVD to get him released from his contract. So there's some interesting stories. Even some of the elephants, are in, I don't want to say blackface, but they are pretending to be African elephants because they're Indian elephants, and they had to put fake ears on them. And it's kind of showing in the thing. The movie did some good things with the animal effects and the stock footage, but it's just overwhelmed. I think it was even problematic at the time, and I think people kind of knew it, but it was kind of just dumb entertainment and not some, Best Picture type movie, and, went on to make so many sequels. And I'm not going to watch those, even if I do a sequel series, which I'm planning on doing as part of this channel, of sequels I've never seen. It's just not worth it. There's nothing to me about this movie that makes you need to watch it. That's really as much as I'm going to say about this one. I don't want to really discuss it anymore. Just, skip this movie. Not worth your time. Watch a better Tarzan movie. Even the more problematic, white saviory, more modern retellings, or the 81 version of this are probably better than this version. The story's not tight. There's nothing to redeem it from its problems. So, that's it. This movie's getting a hard pass for me in the future. Next week, we're going to be continuing on with the Great Movie Rides with something a little more modern. After 3 weeks of 90-year-old films, we're going to Amadeus. Now, this didn't feature in the Great Movie Ride proper, but it had a very familiar, famous shot that was in the montage at the end. So, please like and subscribe to the video if you like what I'm doing. Please comment down below if you have any comments. And thank you for watching Ron Hasn't Seen, and have a good night.